Someone asks you why you ride. You open your mouth and what comes out sounds wrong, too small for what it actually is. You say freedom. You say the feeling. You say it clears your head. And you watch their face. They nod politely, but you can see it. They did not get it. Not even close. And then you walk away thinking maybe you are just bad at explaining things. Maybe if you had the right words, the right metaphor, the right way to describe what happens when you lean into a corner at exactly the right speed on exactly the right road, they would understand. But here's the thing. You are not bad at explaining. The experience you are trying to describe exists in a part of your brain that does not have access to language. And that is not a metaphor. That's neuroscience. When you ride a motorcycle, your brain does something it almost never does in modern life. It engages everything at once. Your vision locks onto the road. Your hearing tracks what is behind you and beside you without turning your head. Your balance system makes constant micro-adjustments. Your muscles respond to inputs you're not even consciously aware of. Your spatial awareness maps the road in 3 dimensions, and all of this happens below the level of conscious thought. Neuroscientists call this embodied cognition. It means that the experience is not happening in the thinking part of your brain. It's happening in the feeling, moving, sensing part, the part that processes faster than language, the part that knows before you know. The thinking part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, is the part that handles words. It's where language lives. It's where you build sentences and find metaphors and explain things to other people. But it does not have direct access to what the rest of your brain experienced on that ride. It gets a summary, a headline, a tiny fraction of the full experience filtered through a system that was not designed to translate sensations into words. That's why when someone asks you why you ride, your answer sounds thin. Because it is thin. Not because the experience was small, because the channel between the experience and a language center is too narrow to carry the whole thing. Think about it like this. You experience a ride in full surround sound, high definition, every sense firing, every nerve alive. But when you try to describe it, you're limited to a text message. You're compressing a symphony into a ringtone. Of course it doesn't sound right. Of course they do not understand.
Now, here's the part that makes it even more interesting. Researchers who study emotion and memory have found that the most powerful experiences in human life are almost always the hardest to describe. The birth of a child, falling in love, a near-death experience, the moment you realized something that changed everything. These are not experiences that come with pre-packaged words. They are felt first and understood later, sometimes much later, sometimes never in words at all. Riding a motorcycle lives in that same category, not because every ride is life-changing, but because every ride activates the same deep processing systems that those major experiences use. The sensory integration, the heightened awareness, the physical engagement, the flow state. These are not surface-level experiences. They are processed in the oldest, deepest parts of the brain, parts that existed long before language was invented. And that is why riders understand each other without talking. You have felt it. You pull into a gas station after a great stretch of road. Another rider is already there. You make eye contact, maybe a small nod. And in that nod, there is more information exchanged than in an hour-long conversation with someone who does not ride, because you are both accessing the same experience from the same place in the brain. No translation needed. Psychologists call this shared embodied experience. It means that when 2 people have gone through the same physical, sensory experience, they can communicate about it without words. The understanding is pre-verbal. It lives below language, and it is one of the strongest forms of human connection that exists. That is why the motorcycle community feels different from other hobbies. It is not just that you share an interest, it is that you share an experience that cannot be faked or explained. You either know what it feels like to lean into a corner and trust the tires, or you do not. You either know the first 10 seconds of a cold morning ride smell like, or you do not. You either know the specific kind of silence inside a helmet at 70 miles per hour, or you do not. There is no way to get there through words. You have to go through the experience. So when a non-rider asks you why you ride and you struggle to explain, understand what is actually happening. Your brain is not failing you. It is protecting the experience. It is keeping the full version in the part of the brain where it belongs, the part that felt it, and sending a simplified version to the part that speaks. The gap between those two is not a flaw, it's a feature.
And here is why that is actually okay. Not everything needs to be understood by everyone. Some experiences are meant to be shared only with the people who have had them. That is not elitism, that is the nature of embodied knowledge. A surgeon cannot explain what it feels like to hold a beating heart. A pilot cannot explain what it feels like to break through a cloud layer into sunlight. A musician cannot explain what it feels like when the whole band locks into a groove at the same moment. These are things you know because you have done them, not because someone described them to you. Riding a motorcycle is the same. The knowledge is in the body, not in the words, and the people who share that knowledge will always be a smaller group than the people who do not. That is not a limitation, that is what makes it yours. So next time someone asks you why you ride, and you give your answer, and you see that polite nod that tells you they did not get it, do not feel frustrated. Do not feel like you failed to explain it. Feel what it actually means. That what you experience on a motorcycle is so deep, so integrated into the oldest parts of your brain, that human language has not caught up to it yet. And it probably never will. That is not a problem. That is the highest compliment an experience can receive. It is bigger than words. The real question is not why non-riders do not understand. The real question is, why do you keep trying to explain? Maybe the better move is to stop explaining and start inviting. Not everyone will say yes, but the ones who do will never ask you why again. Drop your worst attempt at explaining why you ride in the comments, the one where you saw their eyes glaze over and knew you lost them. We've all been there. And if this hit different, subscribe. There's more coming.